listening to the Fifth Down Fantasy Football Podcast with Johnny Slopes.
Top 3 to 5 pick next year.
And Camilla.
For the value you could have gotten at Ryan at.
I almost had 5,000 yards, but no, you don't want me. What you're saying is Wayne Gallman is the Dustin Funches of running backs?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess you can put me down as a saying that.
We now bring you to the Fifth Down.
What is up, Fifth Downers? You're listening to the Fifth Down Fantasy Football Podcast, and I'm your host, Johnny Slopes. And with me, as always, is my partner in crime, K-Mill.
Hey.
Today, we're going to be doing our Week 6 waiver wire. There's been a lot of injuries this past weekend. What was your main takeaways from this past week, K-Mill?
Oh, fuck, man. It was a minefield. It seemed like my team was on the receiving end of most of them. I mean, Devontae Parker, he left with an ankle injury. It sounds like he left on crutches, but it sounds like he's probably gonna be fine for next week, it sounds like so far. Biggest one was OBJ. I mean, broken ankle, man. That's just like a David Johnson injury, dude. That's gonna hurt you, you know. Fucking.
Was it a broken leg or is it a broken ankle?
Broken ankle.
I heard. Okay, because I heard both. Yeah,
he decided today that he is going to have surgery, which means that he could possibly return late in the season, but it's extremely doubtful. So pretty much better to just plan on not having him the rest of the year.
I mean, what did New York do? What did the Giants do to just get all this hate? It seems like they just got like 4 injuries to the wide receiver right now. I know Brandon Marshall was another one that went out with a sprained ankle. It looked like I thought it was worse than that, though. Luckily, they're lucky that's only a sprained ankle. It looks like a pretty bad sprain, though. He's going to be missing some time, probably a couple of weeks at least. I think Dwayne Harris went down. I know Sterling Shepard's not even 100% himself, you know.
Yeah, Sterling Shepard also went down. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And then, luckily, though, it didn't play.
It sounds like Sterling Shepard is the closest to coming back, though.
Yeah, it seems like he's the one that is the most likely to play next week, which is good.
Yeah.
He also horrible matchup against Denver, so keep that in mind.
Yep. What do you make of all these injuries to New York? Kind of makes you just hope that if you hopefully you either drafted or picked up Sterling Shepard beforehand and he's already on your team and you can maybe wait out the storm. What about Brandon Marshall, though? I mean, he's going to miss a few weeks, though. Do you think, though, you could try to wait the storm out for him and maybe see what you got with him?
I mean, yeah, at this point, he's like de facto. As far as experience goes, he's New York's #1 receiver. So I think he holds value in that way. If you have a deep bench, you know, like say you have a 7-man bench in most leagues, I think you could probably make a case to keep him for a couple of weeks, depending on how long this injury is. But at the same time, you know, maybe you suffered other injuries, you don't have the room to keep him. You know, I totally understand that. So you can see it from both sides.
It's a case-by-case thing, especially, though, it makes sense, though, if you have an IR spot that's available, you can stick him on IR, let it ride out, see what you got with him.
Exactly.
You know, in the immediate future, though, like talking like next week, who's going to be like that other giant receiver that's going to step up? You got to think it's probably just going to be Evan Ingram, right?
Yeah, I think that he's going to be he was already a pretty big factor this year anyways, and I think it's only LB.
Yeah, what's concerning is he didn't get like any targets at all.
Yeah, I think that's going to change starting as soon as next week because, they don't have any options. So let's say that, Sterling Shepard's the only one to start, or let's say that this ends up being like, that, they all don't start next week, then, Evan Ingram's in for a big workload, I think. He also does.
I think he's going to get one regardless.
But what's that?
I think he's going to get just a lot of targets just regardless. I mean, who else do they have at this point?
Yeah, exactly. I think that he's in for a big workload. He should already be snagged in most leagues, but if he's not, I think you should definitely put him in a high priority waiver claim or, use a lot of your FAB budget.
I know we'll probably touch on that a little bit later on in the show, but what about using like maybe a guy like Shane Vereen more out in the slot? Maybe, or using him out of the backfield more? Something?
I could see it, man, but
he had 5 receptions. Like I know a lot of it was in like garbage time, hurry up offense, but maybe.
Yeah, I could see Shane Vereen being worth an ad in PPR leagues. But the other thing too is Wayne Gallman. He had a lot of work this week too. I mean, he had, I think it was 3 or 4 receptions, and he looked pretty effective on the ground, and so did Orlando.
We'll get into the running backs a little bit. I just want to get through some of these injuries real fast.
Yeah.
Charles Clay, he's torn his meniscus. Your medical opinion, Camille, how long does that normally take to repair it? Like, if he's getting a surgery right now, so how long is the timetable is he looking at?
Yeah, he had his knee scoped. It's looking like this is going to be at least a month-long injury at the earliest. It's going to be a month. So, unfortunately, he was one of the nice waiver claim pickups of the year so far, but it looks like he's going to be out for at least a month. So, you're probably going to have to drop him in all your leagues.
Yeah, and let's just get this out of the way right now. Don't pick up Nick O'Leary. I know he had 5 receptions in relief of Charles Clay, but he's not a good athlete. He runs a 4.9 40. He's slower than offensive linemen. I mean, it'd make more sense for them to give Logan Thomas. He's actually a fucking athlete. I think they should get him onto the field. I don't see that actually happening, but I mean, I don't think O'Leary is going to fix your problems at tight end.
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen with both of these, but I do agree on the later for you. I think that's a good ad. Logan Thomas, I think he'd be a good ad.
Terrence West, he already injured his calf. I'm not sure if it's the same calf that got re-injured or whatnot, but he went down with a calf injury this past Sunday. What kind of implications will that have on the Baltimore backfield? I mean, does this look like it'll end up getting Alex Collins more involved, or do you think that Buck Allen's just going to suck in like 20 carries a game, or can he sustain something like that?
I think that Alex Collins is worth being rostered in all leagues, but I think that the more effective back right now, especially because of the red zone work he's getting, is Buck Allen right now.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Collins has actually impressed me because he has 7 yards a carry, but it does look like Buck Allen has a stranglehold at the lead back duties. He's getting passing down work. As you said, he got the goal line touchdown. He's getting the goal line work. He's getting like short yardage work. And then Alex Collins is getting what he can get when he needs a break.
Exactly.
But I mean, I like I said, he has impressed me though. He has 7 yards a carry, so I mean it's been pretty impressive.
Definitely, yeah. I think that, like I said, he's still out there. I think that he should be owned in all leagues at this point.
Yeah, and then like you said earlier, Devontae Parker, he left with an ankle injury. He does not appear to be serious. He was seen on crutches. Looks like I could see him staying off of it on crutches for all week. He probably won't practice a whole lot. He might get in like a limited one in on like Friday.
Yeah.
I could see, and then he'll be able to play.
Yeah, I think from all accounts, it sounds like he's going to be fine. This isn't expected to be a multi-week injury, so.
If you, I mean, would you give a guy like Kenny Stills a look though if things do take a turn south?
I mean, I think that you probably could. He's more one of the shakier flex options, but I think that he could be worth a play if Parker can't go. I mean, if Jay Cutler's
he could stretch the field, you know.
Definitely.
That's about it for the injuries. As far as quarterbacks go, I mean, I think there's a lot to be left out there this week. How about you? Is there any guy that's on your radar as far as like picking somebody up for a quarterback and streaming them this week?
I think that probably the biggest one that comes to mind is Trevor Siemian. If he's unknown in your leagues, I think that he could be a good play this week. He plays the New York Giants, who I know that they have a tough secondary, but at the same time, Denver's playing at home, so I think that this is a good week for Siemian.
Is this a homer call?
No. I like the matchup. I mean, we saw what Philip Rivers was able to do last week, so I think that Trevor Siemian could put up similar numbers.
I think Hoyer, this past week he had like 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I know I said last week that he was kind of like a sneaky streamer, and it really paid off. And I think that this week he could also be another sneaky streamer. He plays Washington next week. Washington is most likely going to be without Josh Norman. He has fractured ribs, so he's not going to play. And I don't really think that they really have a whole lot in that secondary outside of Josh Norman that's going to be able to slow down Brian Hoyer. He plays in an offense that's an actual established, offense. It's a proven offense that is proven to work, and it's working for him right now.
Yeah, could be sneaky.
I know Minnesota, they're having some trouble with the Bears. Sam Bradford could be out there. I don't know how interested you'd be in that. I think I'm still a little bit worried about him.
Yeah. I mean, he was pulled in the second quarter tonight, so I think that puts his status next week at least in doubt.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of worrying me about him. I don't know if he'll be right this year.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like I know we're week one, and he just had his great game. Everybody was like, oh, it's not a big deal. And then, sure enough, it is a big deal. I mean, we're what, week 5 now? It's going to be week 6 next week, and if he misses next week, he's already missed a quarter of the season. So,
is there any other quarterbacks that you have off the top of your head?
Not really. Next week, this week was rough because of the buys, with the really good quarterbacks. So I think that next week should be fine. You shouldn't really find yourself in a position to stream next week, or I would think it's unlikely.
I mean, I feel like Hoyer is a pretty good option if you're like a Russell Wilson owner, or if you're like a Dak Prescott owner and you're going to be on bye week next week. I do think that you could do worse than Brian Hoyer.
True.
Let's go to the running backs. I'm just going to throw out these first couple of names here just in case they're still available in your leagues, especially because of how they've been playing. Aaron Jones is 57% still on Yahoo leagues. I know that's going to balloon. It's going to change. It's not going to be right anymore because of what he just did. So I'm saying if he is available in your league, don't be afraid to be aggressive for him or Andre Ellington. They're both still they're owned in more than 50% of leagues, but I'm just saying if they're available, go ahead and scoop them up. Another one is Rob Kelly. A lot of people might have dropped Rob Kelly because in week 4 he left with an ankle injury, and he was going on bye for week 5. So a lot of people might have dropped Rob Kelly, and he's 51% owned in Yahoo leagues. If Rob Kelly is available, I think that's a decent scoop up. They play San Francisco this week or next week.
Yeah, definitely.
Who is there a running back that's on your radar, K-Mail?
Yeah, well, if you listen to my advice, I kind of already tutored his form already, but Matt Breida from the 49ers, he played extensively this week. I don't really buy what the coach was saying. He was saying he was riding the hot hand this week. I think it was more because, Carlos Hyde, who has an extensive injury history, he's already had a hip problem this year. I think that hip problem is starting to bother him, and, I think that if he gives it a go next week and he's not fully healthy and he re-injures that hip or, makes it worse, this is a guy who, he had great combine numbers. He's really quick. I can't remember his 40 time off the top of my head, but I know he does have nice speed, and I think that he could be a big add, and I think that he would immediately supplement him in that 3-down role, and I think that he could be potentially a lottery ticket. I mean, in this week he already had a good. I have him in a PPR league. He scored 10 points, so he has a little bit of standalone flex value as it is too.
Yeah, I was watching parts of the 49ers game this past weekend, and I knew that Carlos Hyde has been having a hip issue, and he was a game-time decision. And I was looking to see if he was out there, and every time I would flip the game on, I would see that it was Matt Breida playing instead. So when I looked at his snap count, I was kind of surprised that it was only 2 more snaps than Carlos Hyde. I mean, I still think that Carlos Hyde will be the unquestioned lead back for right now, but I do think it was interesting that Kyle Shanahan did say he wants to go with the hot hand. If Matt Breida starts performing well when he gets that hand, he could lead to a lot more carries.
Yeah, well, and I think more so I'm saying add him just because of Carlos Hyde's injury history. Like, I think there's very few of us that actually believe that Carlos Hyde can stay healthy for an entire season. So for that reason,
he's already losing snaps because of his hip. I think I don't believe for a second that he's just gonna not play Carlos Hyde. Just
there's
nothing wrong with Carlos Hyde. You're gonna play Carlos Hyde. You know what I mean? So I do think that the reason why Breida's getting these snaps is because Carlos Hyde's not healthy. If he keeps playing when he's not healthy, you could see him lose more snaps to this guy, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's it. So add everywhere, I think.
Another one of those top ads that everyone will be rushing out to get is Marlon Mack. This is the second time we've mentioned Marlon Mack so far during the season. He ripped off 92 yards on 9 carries against the Niners. It appears like Mack could earn some more touches going forward. It seems like when you watch him run and you watch Frank Gore run, he just looks like the back that's not a million years old.
Yeah.
You know?
Age is a factor.
And even Chuck Pagano said that he thinks that they need to get the ball to Marlon Mack more to see what they got in him. I mean, granted, he's not the guy that's in charge of, like, who does that, but he does have some say, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I agree.
So I mean, I think that's a nice little ad. He's only owned in 9% of Yahoo leagues, so he's widely available. Another guy that we can go to. Well, I know I just seen him do this. Jerick McKinnon just ripped off that long touchdown run from Minnesota. I mean, we were talking about this last week. He is the back with more talent, and now that they see that he's better than Latavius Murray, I think that this could earn him some more carries going forward.
I agree. Yeah, I remember you said that to me in a private conversation, and I mean, you're right. Latavius Murray, we know what we're getting with him. He was inefficient last year, and if Jerick McKinnon is still available out there, I think that he could be worth the ad because he is a great athlete. Like his combine numbers are awesome. So I think that with this improved Minnesota offensive line, I think that he could really take his game to the next level and finally be not so much a 3-down back, but he could. He has the skill set to do it.
I mean, he's a physical specimen. He's a very special talent. Minnesota's always said that touted his talent, So I think that he's really worth that. He's only owned in 25% of Yahoo leagues, and I think that he's fumbled back-to-back weeks, but those are the only 2 fumbles in his entire career. Don't be afraid of this dude. Like I'd plug him in the flex in a good matchup.
Definitely.
Let's talk a little bit. I don't really want to spend a lot of time on these guys, but we'll talk a little bit about the Giants' backfield. We got Wayne Gallman. He's 39% owned. We also have we don't know how long Paul Perkins is going to – do you know how long Paul Perkins is going to be out for? It doesn't really matter. He's not worth the ad. I'm just asking for a friend.
Yeah, I don't know, but all I know is that even if he is healthy, I don't think the Giants are going to play him. I think that Wayne Gallman and Orleans Darkwa are going to lead this team now as far as running back goes.
Yeah, I mean, you got Wayne Gallman. He's 39% owned in Yahoo leagues. You got Orleans Darkwa, 3% owned in Yahoo leagues. You also have Shane Vereen at 14%. I still think this is a backfield that is something that you should avoid. I mean, if I had to choose a guy, I kind of like – I've always said this. I've said this even last year. I like Orleans Darkwa the most. I've always liked the way – I always liked his game. He's always impressed me more than Paul Perkins. He was looking pretty good before he left with a calf injury. So I guess we'll have to hold up and see what's up with his calf injury. I'm not sure if it's a strain. That'll be kind of hard to play through.
Last I heard, he's week to week, and I agree with you. He's that downfield running style. I think that he could be worth an ad definitely in all leagues. I think Wayne Gallman too is in that mix as well. He proved that he can be a nice two-way player like that. So I like him too.
I just think that this is still going to end up being a committee from hell, and I would try to avoid it. All right, let's go over to the other pain in the ass, Seattle's backfield. I think this backfield is going to be a headache all year. Eddie Lacy, Thomas Rawls, C.J. Procise, all 3 of these backs have issues staying on the field. it'll look like it's going to remain like a committee from hell, barring any injuries. I will still say, though, the last man standing, if there's ever just a bunch of injuries and one guy's left, that guy could be valuable in this backfield. Don't know who that's going to be. I'm just trying to pry away from any Seattle running backs right now. I don't want any of them.
Yeah, you know what? I put in a waiver claim for Eddie Lacy just to see what happened, and I don't like what I'm seeing from any of them. Thomas Rawls, Eddie Lacy. I just really don't think that. I don't know. I think Pete Carroll is just mismanaging this whole situation. I think that there's people that need to start, the playmakers, and there's people that don't need to start. It's just a situation to avoid. I think that
these running backs are nothing but roster cloggers. That's all they are.
Yeah, you need to just drop everybody until further notice.
Let's go over to the wide receivers. I just want to start with a guy that he's probably not likely available in your league, Sterling Shepard. He's owned in 63% of Yahoo leagues, so he's probably, like I said, he's probably not available. We've been saying, though, for a couple of weeks now, yes, pick up Sterling Shepard. Now it looks like he'll be the top option for the Giants' passing attack. Odell's out and Brandon Marshall's out. So we already touched on that heavily, so let's go over to Mike Wallace. He's currently wide receiver 53, 33% owned in Yahoo leagues. It's nice to see that Mike Wallace is still alive.
Yeah, wow, back from the dead.
I mean, he had 60 yards last week, and he had over 100 this week with a touchdown. At best, he's maybe a bye-week fill-in, but there's probably better and more consistent options out there. You have to keep in mind that he was playing against the Raiders, so I wouldn't put too much stock into what he did.
Yeah, agreed.
This is another deeper option is a guy like Adam Humphries. He's 10% owned in Yahoo leagues. Just another bye-week fill-in. It looks like he has built up a rapport with Jameis Winston. He's a slot receiver. He has 22 targets in the past 3 weeks. He's caught 15 of them. He hasn't scored yet. He doesn't really offer a lot of upside, but he could be like a patch piece in a deeper league.
Yeah.
Is there any receivers that you have your eyes on?
I'm just going to plug one guy, and I know you're probably getting sick of me even bringing him up, but Nelson Aguilar had himself a day this weekend.
He did.
He can be effective at times, and 5 targets, 4 receptions, 93 yards, and a touchdown. It seems pretty good to me, so I think that he'll be kind of a hot ad this week. But the thing is, you have to look at his production. It kind of fell off after his big week 1, so, his monster games, I have to, err on the side of caution. I really just don't see much upside here until he consistently produces at this level. So until then, he's like a wide receiver 4 for me.
It just seems like Carson Wentz. He is lighting it up right now. But he's doing a good job of getting a lot of people involved right now. So it's gonna be a little bit, like you said, a little bit inconsistent. I wouldn't feel comfortable with him in my lineup from week to week. He's 31% owned in Yahoo leagues, though, so I do think, like you said, it's another bye-week fill-in. What about Cooper Kupp, 47% owned? What are you doing with him if you see him on the waiver wire?
It's kind of like my same opinion with Nelson Aguilar. It would be nice to see more consistent production, but I think that you could do worse, if you're like in a 12 or a 14-team league. I think that I can definitely justify the ad, but other than that, I think if you're in like a 10-team league, I think that he's really just not worth to be rostered right now. LA has a tough stretch coming up as far as schedule goes. I just don't think that he's going to be viable.
Yeah. Well, what about Marvin Jones, 53% owned? He just had the best game of his season, and it was only for 6 catches, 54 yards, and 8 targets. What are you doing? What are you doing if you see him on the waiver wire? Are you just leaving him there?
Yeah, I'm probably just going to leave him there.
Is Dante Moncrief worth the stash for when Luck comes back? He's 50% owned. He's not doing a whole lot, though. He's kind of a roster clogger. But do you think he'd be worth the stash?
I think so, because we know that he's Andrew Luck's favorite red zone target, so there's that. But I think at this point, unless you have a deep bench, I wouldn't really worry about it.
Yeah. There's some more fool's gold. Cole Beasley's 21% owned. He just had 2 touchdowns. He has been dormant before that, though. So definitely not something that you can trust. Are you buying in to Zay Jones at all now that Buffalo has all these injuries? Because I'm just not seeing any life out of him either.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. Even after Charles Flagg said he still wasn't able to get anything going. Jordan Matthews is on. I mean, what's the excuse this time? I just don't see it.
I just wanted to bring him up so we can both laugh at how bad he's been. He's had 23 targets through 5 games, and he's only caught 5 of them.
Yeah.
That's fucking terrible, dude. I don't think I've seen something like that before. I really don't think I've seen something that bad before. I've been telling people this Zay Jones is not good, and he goes out and gets 23 targets and catches 5 of them through 5 games.
Yeah, that's even worse than Devontae Adams 2 years ago. A sneaky guy. He secretly has more yards and more targets than both Cooper Kupp and Sammy Watkins is Robert Woods. He's 7% owned. He has 21 targets in 3 games, 30 targets in the season. So, it's still very limited upside. But I'm just saying, if you're in a deeper league, that could be a bye week fill-in. I'm going to throw out 2 more obscure names before we move on to tight ends. Marquise Goodwin, he had a 100-yard game. I know it's just the only time he's ever done that probably in his entire life, but I just want to bring him up because he gets another good matchup next week against Washington. And so maybe I'm just saying like a dart throw DFS style play. Also, I think another guy that could be brought up is a guy like Ricardo Lewis. I don't think you know this. I think he has like 14, 15 targets the past 2 weeks, and the ball has to go somewhere in Cleveland. Yeah, it does. Someone.
Let's go over to the tight ends position. It's bringing me great joy to see Eric Ebron getting dropped in like every one of my leagues.
Yeah, it's going to be a mass drop. He should be dropped to every single league.
He only has 1 game with more than 2 catches, and he has under 100 yards through 5 games. He just doesn't seem like he's a part. He's just not a part of that game plan,
And the fact that a blocking tight end came in to relieve him and caught 2 receiving touchdowns. That's just
that was right after he dropped a touchdown pass.
Yeah, I know that was like coach saying "fuck you, you're done." Like, sit the fuck down.
Detroit does not have a long fuse for tight ends either. They ran Brandon Pettigrew out of town pretty fast too. I mean, he still clogged up a roster spot, but he didn't have a starting job for very long.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. I mean, who would you rather have at this point, like Eric Ebron or Jared Cook?
Yeah, definitely Jared Cook.
Yeah, he at least seems to be like somewhat part of the game plan, Kobe Fleener, he before his bye week, he wasn't looking very good. I think he had like 3 catches through like 2 games or something like that. But he plays the Lions next week. Does that automatically just make him a viable streaming option?
I guess.
I think it could work. He had 2 touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns in 2 weeks, and then he had just 2 invisible games before his bye. But I mean, if you see what Ed Dixon just did to the Detroit Lions this past weekend, I mean, you got to think that he's at least worth a thought on the waiver wire this week.
Yeah, it could happen. I mean, Ed Dixon completely shredded him. So yeah.
I was gonna just immediately call for him to be the stream of the week for tight end for me this week, but I didn't really look over the tight ends very very much. But I know Austin Hooper's coming out. Is out there 44% owned in Yahoo leagues. Do you think that he could have like a small uptick in targets? Because Mohamed Sanu is not going to. I don't think he's going to be ready to play this next week. Julio Jones, he's probably going to be fine, but you got to think he's going to get a small uptick if Sanu can't go.
Yeah, I think that Austin Hooper could be sneaky because I know when Julio and Sanu went out last time, Hooper was getting heavily targeted. So I think that, yeah, he could be worth a play.
And I kind of want to just have like a naked dancer, like stripper party in my room right now because Austin Safarian-Jenkins scored a touchdown, and I've been monitoring him for like 3 weeks now. He's led the team. He led the team in targets this past week. He has 18 targets in 3 games, and now he's scoring touchdowns. He seems like the only reliable guy they can throw the ball to consistently. And I think that he's going to end up, when it's all said and done, he's going to lead the team in receptions, yards, possibly even touchdowns. Well, maybe not yards. I take that one back. Maybe not yards, but receptions and touchdowns, definitely. I think the yards will go to Robbie Anderson. But yeah, he's only 28% owned. I definitely think that he could be a consistent streaming option for the rest of the year. You don't necessarily have to roster him, but you can use him, throw him back in the pond, and then just use him whenever you want him.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to pick your matchups, you know.
Definitely. Yeah, you got to play your matchups on that one for sure.
How are you feeling about Ed Dixon? He's 6% owned. He just went 5 for 175 against the Lions.
I think he's a similar situation on what you were just talking about. I think you could use him potentially for like a bye week plugger, and assuming that Olsen's still on injured reserve. So I think you could use him though. I think that Cam Newton, he just loves his tight end, so I think that you could justify it.
Yeah, so far he's 2 of 3 in good matchups. He played the Saints and he only had 1 catch. But then he played New England. He went 3 for 63, so we'll count that as a win. And then he just absolutely just destroyed the Lions. Like the Lions had no interest in tackling that dude. But so he's 2 for 3 right now. I definitely think that you can use Ed Dixon in a good matchup, and that's it.
Yeah, definitely.
One guy that really impressed me. He's only 1% owned in Yahoo, and I know that this isn't going to be something he's going to be able to do like a whole lot, but George Kittle, the tight end for the 49ers, he had 9 targets and went 7 for 83 and a touchdown. Like he did most of that damage on the last drive of the game to tie the game up to send it to overtime. He had 5 receptions on that drive, but he just looked like a fucking animal out there. Like I know you probably didn't see him play a whole lot in college because you're on the West Coast, but I'm a Big Ten guy. I like to watch the Big Ten. He played for Iowa, and he was good then too. Like this guy's just an animal. He's a freak athlete. He's probably one of the better athletes that San Francisco has on that offense.
Yeah, I mean, he's been creating some buzz this year. I mean, I don't know that I would go so far as to tell you to roster him in like 12-team leagues, but at the same time,
no, he's definitely not. No.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, the guy is a natural athlete. I think that he's kind of reminds me of like a Jake Butt-esque player.
Like I don't know. He gave me his play gave me a boner, so I had to talk about him. Yeah, I mean, definitely if you have him in like a dynasty league, you're pretty happy right now. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
And like we said, we already said nickel Larry. We're not going there.
Yeah, no.
All right. I think there's 2 defenses that I do like this week that I want to talk about before we end this show. One of them's they may not be available in every league, but New England's 55% owned. They're playing the Jets. They're going on the road against the Jets, but they're playing the Jets. So I mean that's not a bad matchup. One more is another defense that a lot of people would have thrown away because they're going on bye. That was Atlanta. They're 21% owned on Yahoo leagues. They play Miami. So I definitely like that matchup. So I think that's definitely a viable play. Yeah.
Yeah. A couple that I want to mention, though, this defense may not be available in your league, but I'll sign off on it. Baltimore plays Chicago next week, so they could be a good matchup play for obvious reasons. The Bears didn't look good tonight. So, I know the game's still going on, but they didn't really impress me. So I give my stamp off on Baltimore next week. And then another one is Washington. They go and they play San Francisco at home next week. So I think that's also another good matchup that you could. I know they will be without Josh Norman, but I think that they could still be a good matchup.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to mention, K-Mill?
No, I'm pretty much solid it.
All right, Fifth Downers, I'd like to thank you for listening to the Fifth Down Fantasy Football Podcast and the BS Podcast Network. If you enjoy this show, please give us a rate and review on iTunes. That would be greatly appreciated. We are also on Spreaker and Stitcher for you non-iPhone users. It's week 6. It means you got to crack open a 6-pack like you do every weekend, and you got to pray to the fantasy gods. How is most of your teams looking, K-Mo?
Everyone's looking good except for our 10-team league where we have that $150 buy-in. I mean, that team just lost David Johnson, I lost Dalvin Cook, and I had Devontae Parker. And I had Charles playing on my team, so it's just it seems like this year is just a lost cause, man. Sometimes I just feel like it's so impossible.
Yeah, it seems like in all my dynasty leagues, I'm rebuilding my dynasty teams this year, so I'm kind of having mixed results. But I'm doing pretty good in redraft. I think out of 9 teams, I only got 1 losing record, so that's not too bad.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah. Well, that'll pretty much do it for today's show. Thank you, Fifth Downers, for tuning in. Have a good night.